Here we go. Welcome into the 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. Hope you're all having a fantastic Wednesday, January 21st. 49ers General Manager John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan just held their end of the season press conference, and they had a lot to say after the Niners lost that playoff game to the Seattle Seahawks, and that means that the Niners season is over, and now they look ahead to the offseason. And there are a lot of big offseason storylines for San Francisco. So we're going to dive into everything that they had to say here today. But first, a reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for daily and year-round coverage of the Niners. Anytime I'm in front of a camera on a microphone talking about the 49ers, I want my content and our coverage to be insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking. I want you to have a voice. So if all that sounds great, lock us in, hit that sub button. I'll be in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. I'll be in Santa Clara for Super Bowl week. Great content to come all throughout the offseason. I have you covered every step of the way. And of course, don't forget to give me a follow on my social media pages at Chase_Senior on X, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also find me on Facebook, Chase Senior Chat Sports. So a lot of interesting stuff to get into here. John Lynch on the Niners injury problem said, we're always looking into trends and data when it comes to injuries, and we'll continue to do that. Good answer. He added, we've spent a lot of time and money looking at injury prevention, but he said naturally injuries are a part of the game. It's not about avoiding them, but mitigating it, because when you play a contact sport like football, of course, it's hard to avoid injuries. Lynch added, we have a lot of good processes and we'll challenge them all. We'll look at everything and examine everything. That is the right approach from this Niners organization because of all the injury issues that they have had for so long. This is during the entire Kyle Shanahan era since 2017, even before him, starting when the Niners moved into Levi's Stadium in 2014, which brings me to this. I think a lot of people owe me an apology. If you want to apologize to me down in the comment section, you can do that right now, because this was breaking news during the press conference that Lynch confirmed that the Niners have and will continue to look into the electrical substation being located next to the Niners practice facility. Here's a direct quote from the Niners GM, because it deals with the health and safety of our players. You have to look into everything. Our guys have been looking into it. We've been reaching out to anyone and everyone to see if a study exists. The health and safety of our players is of the utmost priority to us. We pour into it. We're not going to turn a blind eye to it. We'll look into everything. This is a good move for the Niners, and I applaud this type of approach, right? The Niners are worth nearly $9 billion as an organization, and injuries for a long time have impacted their bottom line and their multi-billion-dollar business. It's also taken away from what the Niners are capable of doing as a collective football team, and the data is very concerning. The Niners should leave this offseason no stone unturned. Reach out to everybody. Conduct a study, as Lynch said that they might do. Look into if the location of the practice facility being next to the electrical substation is potentially a factor in causing these injuries, because I don't think it's the factor. And speaking of that, look at the strength and conditioning staff. Look at the practice schedule and practice regimen. Throughout these Thursday physical practices for the Niners this year, there were a lot of injuries, right? Look into how they weight lift, how they weight train, and the recovery techniques. Because since the Niners moved to Levi's Stadium in 2014, they have the most games lost due to injuries among all teams in the NFL. And since 2017, they have been top 10 in injury rate every year outside of 2023. They have lost more than 2,000 games due to injuries. And a lot of these injury issues are soft tissue based. And I also want to add something. I've seen some people in the comment section saying, well, this electrical substation has been there since the 1980s. Yes, you are right about that. But when Levi's Stadium opened, it expanded, thus increasing the power. That plays a huge role into this thing. Some people have also said, well, what about these injuries that happen away from Levi's Stadium? It's not where the injuries happen. The theory is that EMFs and the exposure of it or exposure to it can degrade Collagen. Collagen is like the glue that keeps our bodies together. It strengthens your tendons, your skin, your joints, your hair, your nails. It's very important. And so if that is getting degraded over time, it is weakening tissues. The weakening of tissues will lead to eventual injury. So this is why I've been talking about this. This is why I brought it up all the way back in October. And then my guy, Peter Cowan, he brought this back up, gave me a shout out on Pardon My Take on Barstool. That was crazy. It's taken off like wildfire. And I'm glad that in me starting this conversation, despite all the crap that I took, people calling me the Alex Jones of NFL content creators and a conspiracy theorist, that it has landed at the Niners front door and that they are looking into it. Because if this is playing a role among the many things that could be playing a role into the Niners being hurt, they need to figure it out. And if Jed York needs to invest further into something like this and move the practice field, then you got to do it. Because if it's impacting also the players' health and their mental health, and they are worried about this, and it could alter who the Niners are able to sign in free agency because NFL players are reaching out to their agents, according to the Washington Post, and voicing concerns about this, the Niners have to make a change. They have no other choice. So this is a big story, and it's not going anywhere. Another big story for San Francisco, their defensive coordinator search. For me, my favorite candidates, Brian Flores, Jim Schwartz, Raheem Morris. Brian Flores is one of the best defensive minds in football. What he's done with Minnesota, incredible. They were awful before him. They got better and better and better with him in the 3 seasons that he's been DC. With Jim Schwartz, he runs the wide 9. The Niners run the wide 9. He too, one of the top defensive minds in football. And since he was the Browns defensive coordinator in 2023, those Browns defenses were great. And then Raheem Morris, another really good defensive mind. Back a few years ago, he was voted a top 5 defensive coordinator by players across the NFL. He's really tight with Kyle Shanahan. I think those 3 candidates would be really good. Unfortunately, it looks like the Niners are going to promote internally Gus Bradley to be their next DC. Kyle Shanahan pretty much said as much, or at least he hinted at it. He said that Gus Bradley is the obvious candidate to take over for Robert Saleh. They are going to go through the whole process to find a Robert Saleh replacement, but it looks like it's going to be Gus Bradley. And when he was the Legion of Boom defensive coordinator with the Seahawks, he was great. That's what propelled him to get a head coaching job with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Niners scheme that they run now influenced by that Gus Bradley scheme. Now, Kyle Shanahan had a great answer about the Niners still running that Seattle scheme. And he said, it's much different now than what it was even when I first came here. This year, for instance, the Niners had a lot more 5-man fronts, and they have evolved as a defense. But the principles of that defense are what Gus Bradley was running with Seattle. And so you do have some scheme familiarity there. But after he got fired by the Jags, he went to the Chargers, didn't work out. Went to the Raiders, it didn't work out. Went to the Colts, it didn't work out. I believe he got fired at each of those spots. And so it's good to have a guy who's been in the building. That's great. But I just think that the Niners would be settling in promoting Gus Bradley. I think that they could do much better in their defensive coordinator search because he's not the best candidate who they can bring in compared to the others that I mentioned. Now, if those guys don't work out, then yes, maybe you revert to Gus Bradley. But if that's the guy, it's a pretty vanilla and boring promotion and hire. Kyle Shanahan on Brandon Aiyuk said he's never seen anything like this in 22 years of coaching. Shanahan said that he reached out to Brandon Aiyuk and contacted him multiple times. Then he reached out again and again and again. But Aiyuk never responded to Kyle. Others from the organization, players, front office executives, members of the front office, they reached out to BA as well. He ignored their calls and their texts. When John Lynch was asked, why would Brandon Aiyuk fork over like $25 million and not even fight this with the NFL Players Association? Lynch said, I wish I had an answer for you. And Lynch said flat out, looks like Brandon Aiyuk has played his last snap as a Niner. We knew that, but that was the confirmation. What a weird ending to Aiyuk's Niners career. I'm not sure what's going on with him. I hope that he's okay mentally. But man, I never knew of a knee injury that could lead to CTE and some guy just acting crazy like Aiyuk has acted. Used to be beloved by his teammates and his coaching staff, played the game hard, willing blocker, progressed and improved so much as a wide receiver. Became an all-pro in 2023. He got paid by the Niners. He got a $120 million contract, $76 million in guaranteed money, but he signed that deal, and immediately in the lead up to that and after it, he's been unhappy since. And now he's been missing for months. Is there another team that's going to have interest in him? Fascinated to see if another team wants to bring him in. Another big thing that is a problem for this Niners team right now that they need to address this upcoming offseason, their lack of speed. They're slow as an offense. They're aging. They're not explosive. And Shanahan, when asked if the Niners need to get faster this offseason, he said, yes, definitely. We noticed this year we were slower than in years past. I'm glad that they're admitting that and acknowledging that, because the talent gap and the athleticism gap between the Niners and the Seahawks on Saturday night was drastic. I know that the Niners were banged up, but even with some of their star players and their marquee players, they got exposed from an athletic standpoint. Lynch said that the Niners would love to have Jawan Jennings back. It seemed like Lynch kind of got emotional when he first started talking about JJ. The Niners love him and how he plays, the tenacity and aggressiveness in which he plays with. And he said that those are conversations that we want to have in bringing Jennings back. What the holdup could be is if Jennings gets more than $20 million in free agency, because the Niners should not pay that. Nick Bosa trending well, should be able to come back during training camp. That's great. Same can be said for Mykel Williams. The Niners think that George Kittle will have an impact next year. George Kittle said the other day during locker room cleanout day, he expects to be back well before November. The Achilles tear that he had was up top near the soleus, which is better than toward the heel when you have to drill into the heel. And so the recovery is a faster process when that happens. And then for Mac Jones, Kyle Shanahan saying he would be surprised if Mac wasn't around next year. I kind of agree, but if they get blown away by a trade offer, like a first-round pick, for instance, you might have to take that and then see what you have with Curtis Rourke, maybe sign a quarterback or draft and develop another one. Offseason in free agency. Grant Cohn hearing that the Niners are going to be very aggressive. And John Lynch said, after we ate more than $100 million in dead cap space, or dead cap money in 2025, he expects the Niners to have more flexibility this offseason. And I do think that the Niners are going to be more aggressive in free agency this offseason. Think about the players who they lost from 2024 to 2025. Charvarius Ward, All-Pro in 2023. Drake Greenlaw, one of the best linebackers. Talanoa Hufanga, an All-Pro safety. Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave, Aaron Banks. Like, they lost some really important pieces and players. Deebo Samuel, they traded him away. And now that they ate all that dead money, they're partially to blame because the contracts they gave out weren't great. Now they have some more flexibility. And I'm excited to see what the Niners do this offseason. And as I mentioned, I've got you covered every step of the way. Hit that subscribe button. I'll be on with Larry Krueger a little bit later, going live on the Krug Show. We'll talk Niners tonight at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see all of you there for more Niners talk. And until next time, catch you later. I did a video a little bit earlier, ESPN's crazy predictions for the Niners this offseason. Be sure to check that video out. It's up on the channel.